Welcome everybody to another episode of Straight Out WAC Live. We're gonna recap a wild, wacky night of WAC hoops on WAC Wednesday. How about them apples to start off this show? Let's get it going right now.
Goody will drive, left-handed flush over the top of Kepning.
Pullback, step back three, bottom!
Mavericks, it's short, tip back in, Weaver got it! Yes!
Neely, the handoff, Jones for the tie!
Oh, he's fouled and one!
Presents itself is what you gotta take. You can't.
It's knocked away, still loose. Doherty the heave. Oh my God!
Welcome to the Straight Outta WAC podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is another episode of Straight Out WAC Live. I'm going to bring in Derryl, but first, I want to start off with a little video clip from one of the games last night in East Texas. This one takes place in West Texas, at Moody Coliseum, part of a big night for a pair of players, but this one in particular, so enjoy.
Steal by Wernley. Earl up top, rising, layup, good! It's a triple-double for Bella Earl. Kennedy Rising puts it in the bucket. Back-to-back games for Bella with 3 double-figure stats, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists for Bella Earl. Back-to-back games.
Back-to-back games with a triple-double for Bella Earl, ACU. I believe she's a junior guard right now, right? Is that? Am I looking at that right? Let me just make sure. I believe she's been there for 3 years. Yeah, she's a junior guard. Back-to-back triple-double. She had one the other night in their win against Navy. 19 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. I mean, we don't see triple-doubles very often these days, and now we've seen one in back-to-back games, Derryl. And then on top of that, Peyton Hull had herself another 30-point game, 31 points, back-to-back games with 30-plus points for this true freshman point guard, true freshman guard for ACU. What's interesting to me about that video clip that we just saw, the assist that gave her Bella Earl a triple-double, you see Julie Goodenough call timeout immediately after the bucket, almost like she's subbing everybody out. She just wanted her to get that assist. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was at the point where I had switched over games to the Tarleton SFA game, so I was monitoring it on live stats, but I didn't actually see the play where she crossed the triple-double line until you just showed it.
Yeah.
But
You can see Julie Goodenough in the background. Like, you can see her running down the sideline. As soon as the bucket's made, she's right there, timeout to get Bella Earl off. It was part of a pretty good win for ACU to start off WAC play, 94-76 over UT Arlington at Moody Coliseum. And Derryl, the crazy thing about this ball game is that UT Arlington probably played its best game offensively. Like, they had 3 players in double figures. Hannah Humphrey had 20 points. Gia Adams had 18. And Avery Brittingham had 15. So, like, it seemed like it was a really good ball game for UTA, but they just couldn't stop ACU.
yeah, it was. And if you're going to get into a jump shooting contest with ACU, good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically the way UTA played for the first half, and they were right there. They just could not string together the stops necessary to keep ACU under control. And whatever they found in Annapolis, good grief, bottle it up.
Yeah, very true. So, good start for ACU. The Wildcats are, I believe, let me look at it here. I didn't write this down. I apologize, folks. But on Saturday, they're on the road somewhere. I know that because you play one home game, you play one road game in these first 2. So they're at Stephen F. Austin on Saturday. There's a 2 p.m. Central Time tip-off. So let's talk about this SFA team that played last night at Tarleton. I don't know why there's an echo. I don't know if it's my system or what, but there's an echo a little bit. I'm sorry for that, folks. We're still working out the kinks of these live streams, so bear with us. Anyways, the Stephen F. Austin women going to Tarleton. 2 new head coaches, Leonard Bishop, Bill Brock. Basically a bunch of new players on both squads. And it was a game until maybe late in the fourth quarter when SFA started hitting 3-pointers. And you were watching that game, so let's hear your breakdown of the Lady Jacks and their win over Tarleton last night.
Yeah, SFA started slow from the 3-point line. They hit one in the first quarter, and then they just started filling it up from the outside. Kyla Deck with another big late November, early December performance, 24 points, 6 of 9, I believe it was, from 3-point distance. Lady Jacks hit a season-high 14 threes in that win. 14 of 35 for 40%. That's got to make Leonard Bishop feel good, especially with the struggles, not the last game out at home, but the previous home game against North Texas. And, if you watch these two teams, it looks like it'll be a shootout again on Saturday when them and ACU get together. Tarleton under Bill Brock continues to hang around and battle. They just cannot get over that hump. They gave SFA a game, like you said, Kyle, for a solid 3 and first couple minutes of the fourth. But that once those 3-pointers started to go for SFA, it was just going to be hard for them to keep up. Faith Acker impressed in her college debut, 16 points, 7 rebounds to lead the Texans. And this is a post player that I'm pretty confident WAC fans will enjoy watching for the next several years if she stays in Tarleton purple.
Yeah, I want to look through the box score here real quick, and I'm looking at it, and you see that from I want to say about the 4-minute mark after Kyla Deck hit a pair of free throws to give the Lady Jacks a 7-point lead. Avery Van Sickle with a 3-pointer. Tyler McClimate Call with a layup. Kyla Deck with a 3-pointer. All of a sudden, it's a 13-point game. And then Avery Van Sickle with another 3-pointer with a minute left to make it a 15-point game. So it was just a matter of the fact that the Lady Jacks started hitting shots to win the ball game late because it was a decent ball game. I mean, it was a 5-point game with 4:32 left when Lexi Bull hit a 3-pointer. They got it down again it was down to 3 at one point in the fourth quarter. It was down to, I believe it was 2. It was tied going into the fourth quarter. So I think you're right when we say that when it comes to Tarleton, they need to finish, plain and simple. They're just not finishing ball games and getting over that hump with that win. And it'll come. I believe it will because they played well and they have confidence that they can beat people. It was just a matter of SFA hitting shots. So, I mean, what else did you see in that ball game that you really liked?
Yeah, Faith Acker, I think, was the big story. It seems like the newcomers have been the story the first couple of weeks of the season. Peyton Hull doing what she's doing at ACU, Chloe Lemon at CBU, Ava Ulrich at SUU, and now this is the first time I've seen Tarleton play this year other than the end of that Eastern game. And Kyle, I don't know how much of that game you saw, but Faith Acker impressed the heck out of me. 16 points, 7 rebounds. Did a really good job defensively on Kirsten Harden when called upon to defend her. Down in the block, made things very difficult for the senior. Although the senior did get to the line 18 times, most of them on her. But Faith Acker, keep an eye on that name for the next several years because that's a post player that WAC fans will enjoy watching. In a league that we have several really talented post players, and I would venture, Kyle, I don't know how you feel about this. I feel like we're becoming a very post predominant league.
I mean, it's always been that kind of league. Like I shouldn't say always been that kind of league. It's been a guard heavy league. There's some great post players in this league: Kirsten Harden, Addison Martin, among
Grace Schmidt,
Avery Brittingham, Grace Schmidt. There's some really good post players. Megan Smith. So yeah, it's becoming an interesting dynamic, especially on the women's side. Men's side, I think it's still a guard heavy league. There's some good bigs, but I don't think, there's the dominant big that we've had maybe the last couple years. So it'll be very interesting to see how it all plays out in that regard. And we saw the last 2 WAC champions on the women's side, SFA, they had size, right? And And then last year with Southern Utah, they had size. Megan Jensen and Lizzie Williamson, like they had size. So that plays a huge part in winning championships on the women's side because you have to have that interior presence.
Yeah, and you have to have the ability to go inside out with your bigs. You think about that SFA team, you had Stephanie Vischer, who could do a little bit of both. You think about Megan Smith, who is more your prototypical post who can, with the back to the basket, but has shown the ability to stretch defenses out to 3-point land this year. And then Acker, same mold, traditional big, back to the basket type post player, but without quite the range that a Megan Smith has. But I'm sure the range will come when she works on it.
Yeah, so we'll get there. We're gonna switch over a little bit right now to the men's side. We're gonna go to East Texas. I've been to Nacogdoches quite a few times in the past 2 years, which is kind of cool. A lot of friends down there. I want to say I'm not surprised by the outcome. I want to say I'm surprised that Tarleton won outright, and I'm tired of my echo. I'm sorry, you guys. Like I don't know why there's an echo here. It's very weird. So, anyways, I'm not surprised that Tarleton hung around. Not at all. With Billy Gillespie sideline, they're playing for their head coach right now. They won 2 games the SoCal Challenge. Played really well. They're confident. They play defense. They get after it. So that's not a surprise that they hung around. The +9 that was the line. There was no surprises there that they would possibly cover that. So winning outright though, that's a little bit more of a story. I mean, it was a 9-point lead for SFA with about 9 minutes to go, and Tarleton won the ball game outright. They finished. I don't even know the run right now. I'd have to look it up, but then they also tried to give it away. Like they fouled on a 3-point shoot. Fouled Frank Stanton on a 3-point shot. He made all 3 free throws. Then they didn't hit free throws and gave SFA a chance. Matt Heyman missed 2 free throws that would have tied the game, but SFA got the rebound and had a good look, but Kamari Wilson's 3-pointer didn't go. So, it's going to be a fun league, Derryl, because SFA is a preseason number 2. They had big wins over LMU and Drake in the Cayman Islands Classic, got throttled by Utah State. I was thinking they were going to come out with their hair on fire on Wednesday night, and then Tarleton goes in there and beats the Jacks to create some chaos, right? This early, like in a game that matters significantly because you have to win conference games in order to go to WAC Vegas. You don't want to be on the outside looking in. So it's wacky WAC madness already, and we're only in November.
Not only that, but defending home floor in this league is going to be huge. And for Tarleton, that's a road steal, as good a road steal as you can get in this league, to go into Johnson Coliseum and knock off the Jacks. Now, the trick is for Tarleton, don't give that game back. Don't give that game back with a bad loss at home.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't know that it'll ever be a bad loss if they lose to SFA at home. But they do host, let's see, looking at this, going back into it, they host UTRGV on Saturday. So Tarleton could very easily be 2-0 to start WAC play. That's crazy. And I'm not saying this is no disrespect to the Texans. Like, we didn't know much about you. We knew you had Lou Williams. We knew you had Ja'Cory Smith, Keandra Gaddy. After that, there's a bunch of unknowns, right? So the fact they went into SFA, one, without their head coach, I don't know what to make of this Tarleton team. I think they're going to be very good. But maybe it's too early to tell because maybe SFA was still in that mode of trying to figure things out because, you're not used to playing conference games early on or this early in the season. So I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see what happens on Saturday. Plus, here's the other kicker. UTRGV was one of 2 teams to beat Tarleton at Wisdom Gym last year. So could we get some more craziness on Saturday? And my family's going to be very upset at me because I'm going to be on my phone checking scores and checking streams while we're at the family Christmas party. I hope my wife is watching this because Like I'm going to be locked in to that while we're trying to open White Elephant and other stuff. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens and how we go moving forward. But like you said, that's a big win. I'm trying to pull up the Ken Palm right now to check it out to see what the ranking was, how far they jumped.
Kyle, I want to go back to something you were talking about earlier about, teams not being able or ready to play conference games, at this point in November. Reminded me of something Jared Olson said to me last week. He was like, if you ask any coach in this league, I'm sure they'll tell you to a T, nobody is ready to play a conference game in November. It's just the hand we've been dealt, and we got to roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You can't change it now, right? You have to play them. And it's just interesting because a lot of coaches coach differently in November and December than they do in January, February, March. So the mindset is different because now you're playing a game that actually means so much because you don't want to be on the outside looking in down the road in February when it comes to WAC Vegas. So these games are must-win situations. Non-conference games, you want to win those. You want to pull off an upset at times. Everybody wants to win, right? But they're not necessarily must-win games because you have to take care of business in conference just to make it to the conference tournament. So that's why these two games this week, and a couple of them are next week, are so big. We are going to take a quick break. I do want to go over one thing. Tarleton jumped to 157 in Ken Palm after their win at SFA. SFA dropped out of the Ken Palm top 100 to 108. Utah Valley jumped up from 174 to 167 after their win over Seattle. Seattle dropped from 131 to 143. So we'll get into more of these games in just a moment. We're going to come back in about 30 seconds. All right, everybody, we're back in the Straight Outta WAC live show, I guess we can call it now. We're recapping the WAC openers from Wacky WAC Wednesday. We've gone over Abilene Christian women and big performances from Peyton Hull, as well as Bella Earl with her second triple-double in 2 games. We also talked about the SFA men, actually Tarleton men upsetting SFA in Nacogdoches last night. Ja'Cory Smith, Keandre Gaddy, Lou Williams, they were really good for the Texans in that win, even though they almost gave the game back to SFA. So a big-time road win to open up WAC play for the Texans. We've talked about SFA at Tarleton. Women's game, Lady Jacks pulled it out late, kind of pulled away. It was a 50-50 game to start the fourth quarter, and the Lady Jacks just kind of started hitting shots, finding their offensive rhythm to pull away for the win there. I want to talk about the ACU, Abilene Christian, at UT Arlington men's game last night. So ACU came out, got started really quick, led, I believe it was like 9-0 really quick out of the gate. And then slowly UT Arlington starts making their run to come back. There was I believe it was like a 4 or 5 minute drought from ACU in the middle of the first half, towards the later part of the first half. And here's the kicker. UTA outscored ACU 45-37 after half. They had a 7-point lead at halftime. But UT Arlington shot 65% from the field in the second half. They were 8 of 10 from 3-point range. 8 of their 13 field goals after halftime were 3-pointers. Like, that's awesome. Here's the crazy part. They won by 15, right? And it wasn't like ACU shot bad. They shot 43% in the second half. UTA hit 12 3-pointers in the game. ACU hit 8. UTA shot 28 free throws, made 20. ACU shot 19 free throws and made 13. So this was a pretty clean ball game. It was. I want to point this out too, Derryl, and I don't know how it was on the women's side. I'll have to go back and look at it for maybe tomorrow's show that we can talk about it. I think this was one of the few games that had less than 40 fouls called, even though there were a ton of free throws shot in this game. There was 47 free throws shot in this game and 40 fouls called. So maybe it's right around the average for the men's games last night outside of the UTRGV GCU fiasco. But KT Turner, new head coach, he got his first conference win. It's a good way for them to start off their reward. They get to go to Grand Canyon on Saturday and play the Lopes. So I'm interested to see how that game goes. I'm very interested because we saw GCU struggled a little bit last night in Edinburgh. They came out with I believe it was 10-point win. But it was within 5 in the last few minutes. There were a lot of fouls called. There were 71 free throws shot in that ball game, Derryl. Like 71 free throws.
Oh my!
How
That gives
do
me
you
a
do
headache
that?
just thinking about it.
Yeah, right. Like it was awful.
Trying to figure out how to fit that many free throws in a scorebook too. Oh my!
Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy. Let's see. There was fouls were Gabe McLaughlin fouled out, Duke Brennan fouled out, Sid Curry fouled out for GCU, Dalen Williams fouled out for UTRGV. There were 28. There were 54 fouls called. So technically, it wasn't too bad. It just seemed like all of them were shooting fouls. So I mean, it's kind of wild how that played because, like I said, there were 40 fouls called in the UT Arlington ACU game, but only 47 free throws were attempted. So a lot of the free throws that took place in the UTRGV game were simply shooting free throws, shooting fouls. GCU was 24 of 37 from the line. UTRGV was 26 of 34 from the line. UTRGV made more free throws than they did field goals for the game.
Mm-hmm. Not a good recipe for success.
GCU made one less free throw than they did field goals for the game. That is a crazy, crazy, crazy stat. I don't know that I'm a fan of that, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of that because there were a lot of whistles in every game last night. It felt like a lot of whistles. And I was at the Seattle Utah Valley game, another really fun ball game between those two. And lots of whistles at times. And it was weird because the officials didn't call the foul maybe before they blew their whistle where they called a different foul. Like it was amazing to me what they called, what they didn't call. I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to be that guy that criticizes officials, but it was a rough first night of WAC play for the officials on Wednesday night. Somebody just posted a comment. I'm going to show your comment, Brady. Does it show how many fouls were in the second half of the GCU game? I'm going to look it up right now. It doesn't tell me here. Yeah, it doesn't tell me here in this in-depth, this box score, so I can't go into that. I would love to if I could. I do know that in the second half, GCU shot 20 free throws. They were 13 of 20 from the free throw line. And UTRGV in the second half was 16 of 22 from the free throw line. So, I mean, that's a lot of free throws to be shot. UTRGV took 10 more free throw attempts than they did in the first half. GCU took 3 more free throw attempts than they did in the first half. So, I don't know what to make of it, Derryl, and that'll be a discussion because there's so many Yeah, it was. There were a lot of free throws taken in that game, Brady. Like, I get it. The thing is, it's going to be hard because there's so many different styles of play in the WAC. Like, that's just the way it is. You're going to have one night where it's going to be a game like it was in UTRGV, where I think officials anticipate the physicality, but they take that more into consideration than just letting the guys play, if that makes sense. Do you think about that, Derryl?
Yeah, they're going to call what they're going to call. I mean, and every crew has a different standard of what's considered, acceptable contact versus.
They are going to call what they're going to call, but the problem is you have so many differing styles of basketball in the Western Athletic Conference, and when these officials are officiating different leagues, where maybe the style of basketball isn't the same as what they're getting, like you're going to have West Coast basketball where the West Coast Conference is more finesse and more pace and get up and down the floor and score a lot of points and stuff like that. You're going to have the Big Sky, same kind of similar type thing. They don't get after it necessarily physically, defensively like the WAC does. So when you're jumping from league to league, it feels like it's going to be a struggle to kind of, like you said, they're going to call what they're going to call, but it's going to be a struggle because they're not used. Maybe there's some officials that aren't used to Stephen F. Austin getting after you defensively as hard as they do, or Tarleton getting after somebody. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this consortium works out when, officials are jumping from league to league to league. And it's even harder because we haven't seen conference games up until now with all these other leagues. And so when you're playing a conference game this early, they're not really ready for that because they haven't officiated a UTRGV or a GCU. So they don't know what they're expecting, right? Like that's going to happen this early, which makes it even harder to kind of see how things play out.
Yeah, you try to go in, like, I used to work volleyball at the high school level. You try to go into each game with an open mind and give each team your best. But you're right, bouncing from league to league, from conference to conference, especially if you're in the consortium where, say, you could be working in the WCC one night, LMU, get on a plane, fly to Texas, work a UTA game the next day, hop on a plane out of DFW, fly to Spokane, you're working an Idaho game in the Big Sky. I mean, that's tough too.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I wouldn't stress over it, for the fans that watched that game last night. I don't think this is going to be the norm for the WAC, but I do think you have to expect that there's going to be whistles you're not going to like because it's just so many different styles of play that officials are going to have a hard time adjusting. Hopefully they're able to maybe look at film or maybe get some critique on, hey, this, because I know coaches send in films. I know coaches send in clips, and I know coaches talk to the WAC consortium, John Higgins. So we'll see what happens and how that plays out. But, yeah, a lot of free throws were shot last night in Edinburgh. A lot of fouls were called. A lot of people fouled out. So, and here's the thing. In the Tarleton SFA game, Keandre Gaddy, Ja'Cory Smith both fouled out. Dario Domingos had 4 fouls, and he only played 6 minutes. Krishan Christmas had 4 fouls for the Jacks. So, like, it's just the way that people want to play. They want to play with pace. They want to play a physical style of defense. And, you just got to adjust, like, to the whistles. So it's unfortunate that that's kind of the case, but you just have to adjust. So either way, GCU got a 10-point win over the Vaqueros to stay, to be undefeated, the preseason WAC favorites, kind of had a battle. So we'll see how they handle UT Arlington on Saturday. I want to take a little break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about a coach who got his first win of his head coaching career last night. So we'll be right back after this 30-second break. Welcome back to this Straight Outta WAC live show as we recap the WAC openers on a wacky WAC Wednesday last night. There were some surprises, like we said. Tarleton men beating Stephen F. Austin in Nacogdoches. We had another big performance from the SFA or the ACU women. Freshman Peyton Hull went for 31 points. Bella Earl had a triple double. SFA women, the Lady Jacks went into Tarleton in a game of two new head coaches. Leonard Bishop, got his first WAC win over Bill Brock as the Lady Jacks shot really well down the stretch. UT Arlington men gave KT Turner his first conference win with a double-digit win over ACU as they shot the lights out in the second half. So now I want to talk about a coach who got his first win. Last night, sitting at 0-6, Seattle U women opened up with Utah Valley at the Red Hawk Center. Basically, the Red Hawks led start to finish. It was tied after the first quarter at 14. And then in an ugly offensive game, we'll just say that, Seattle U gave Skylar Young a 58-48 win, his first win of the season and of his head coaching career. And we're going to listen to what he had to say as he talked with Russ Brown after the ballgame.
Huge win. Sometimes conference play is seen as a refresh, a new start. 1-0 in conference play, first win of the 23-24 season. What'd you see out of your squad?
Grit. That's all we talked is a full 40 minutes. Even though we had some stretches that we didn't score for about 4 minutes, can we dig deep and find it through? And I felt like this the first game we competed for all 40 minutes without relenting.
A lot of players stepped up. Maya Moore, Juliana Walker back on the court as well. Kurilenko, Inarante, so many big shots. Talk about your team. It seems like a real team effort.
Well, I told them it's not going to be one individual, 3 individuals. It's going to be all 13 individuals a part of our program that have to be ready to go at any given moment. Anna come out, hit a couple big threes. Riri has that Steph Curry confidence, hit a big three late. Jules didn't play for the whole season, comes out and gives us a spark in the first half. And then, Peyton, you give it to her in the high post, she goes at the rim. And Maya fights through foul trouble, stays with it, and this team is finding the grit. And like you said, it's conference season. We know how it goes. It's all about conference season. It's all about the march to March.
Love it. Got to mention 1-0 first win at the helm of the Red Hawk program. I know you don't care. It's all about the win, but not about you yourself. But how does it feel to finally get that first one?
Oh, it's great. It's just great, but now we got to build. You know how I go. I'm back to work. We got a tough game going down to Cedar City. We're going to celebrate this tonight and back to work. Try to keep it going.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's back to work. Congratulations, Skylar Young, on your first win as a head coach. I'm looking at this stat sheet. They held Utah Valley to 30% shooting from the field, 50% from the free throw line, and 18% from 3-point range. The Wolverines were 4 of 22 from 3-point range, but it wasn't much better offensively for the Red Hawks. It was a little less than 40% from the field. They did hit 7 3-pointers, so that was the difference. But Skylar Young, right on the money with the fact that you got to get back to work and you got to build on it now. And it's a great win to get started in WAC play. It's crazy when I hear Russ talk about what do I want to say, the WAC season, I guess we're not even it's so crazy to think we have another month until we start up conference play again after this week. Is that weird to think? We're not really in
Yes
conference season, but we're playing conference games that matter.
It's like the conference office just found a random spot for 2 conference games, which I get they had to do with going to 20 conference games. They had to find a week or a week and a half spot somewhere in that non-conference schedule for teams to play these 2 games. But it does feel very weird to be talking about conference openers, on November the 30th. I don't know too many conferences in the country at the Division I level that do it, and there's probably a few at the small college level, but not as many as you would think.
You look at some of them. I think we have the Mountain West Missouri Valley Conference Challenge. We have the Big Ten ACC Big Ten Challenge, ACC, SEC, whatever. All these challenges are going on interconference right now. Nobody's in conference play, but like you said, they had to figure out a way to get 20 games so that everybody played everybody twice, which it makes sense. It's just crazy that this is where we're at right now. So, but yeah, congratulations, Skylar Young. Got that win. They're at Southern Utah on Saturday to see if they get win number 2. But they have just as many conference wins now. Or let's see. Let me look at it here. They had 5 conference wins last year. So they're well on their way to getting 5 conference wins. We'll see if they can keep that rolling, like I said, when they go to Cedar City. So there was another game between Seattle U and Utah Valley. God, this echo is just so bad. I don't know where it's coming from, everybody. So forgive me. I'll get that worked out. Stay with us as we continue to roll here. But there was another thriller between the Seattle U men and Utah Valley men in Orem last night. Came down the final few possessions. I called it. I said it would, as it usually does. Jaden McClanahan got a steal, got fouled, hit 1 of 2 free throws that gave the Wolverines a 4-point lead. And then on the second free throw that he missed, Trevin Dorius came down with the offensive board. Wolverines hit free throws to win the game. I love this series. Like, people do not talk about this series between Seattle U and Utah Valley enough. Okay, I wrote about it on our Substack page. You can check that out on the WAC Hoops Nation Substack page. I will also put it on Twitter again since I wrote it this morning. But Cam Tyson did what he does. He hit 7 3-pointers. The problem with Seattle right now is they don't have that third scoring option. That's what I noticed last night. They hung around with Utah Valley because they're a really good team, but they didn't have that third guy that could go for 15 or 20 points like they did with Riley Grigsby last year. Like, they just didn't. They have guys that can contribute, but they don't have that guy that can score or create his own shot like Riley Grigsby could, like Cam Tyson can, like Alex Schumacher can. So they got to figure that out. They're going to be just fine, but when they get John Christophilus back, they're going to be just fine too. He's out with that hand injury, so they hope to get him back soon. Utah Valley, on the other hand, like, I don't want to say I was surprised about what happened last night because, Seattle U and Utah Valley, things happen. Trevin Dorius played really well. Jay McClanahan played really well. Caleb Stone-Carwell hit shots. The big thing is they shot free throws really well down the stretch. I believe they were like 7 of 8 or 9 of 10 down the stretch to win that ball game. And they got physical too. Like the Kobe Williamson was averaging like 18.6 points per game coming in, and he only finished with 5 points last night. Brandon Chatfield had 10 points, but 4 of those points came out of free throws. So the rebounding, Seattle U won the rebounding margin, but it felt like Utah Valley was just a more physical team in that ball game. But again, it came down to the final few possessions in the 78-72 win for the Wolverines, who now lead the series 14-13. I love underrated rivalries when people don't pay attention to them as much as maybe they should.
Yeah, and this is definitely one people should pay attention to. You look at the history between the two teams, 14-13. It doesn't get much closer than that.
And in my article, I pointed this out in my article. So last year, the teams combined for 48 wins. The year before, they combined for 43 wins. And they have won. So Seattle U won the share of the regular season title in 21-22, and Utah Valley won it outright in 2022-23. So, both these teams are winning at a high clip, and nobody's talking about it. Like, it's kind of wild.
Yeah, it's maybe part of it is the fact that, it is the WAC, and a lot of these games are played after a lot of the national folks are tucked safely in their beds at night with phones and laptops shut off for the night. But, get some coffee, guys. Stay up with us back east. Enjoy some great WAC after dark basketball on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a great product out here.
And the thing is, they're both have hometown kids that want to, take them to the NCAA tournament. Utah Valley's never been to the NCAA tournament. Seattle U, it's been a long, long time since they've been to the NCAA tournament. So, you got Cam Tyson and Christophilus that are both, right there, local kids from Seattle. You got Trevin Dorius, Drake Allen, and a couple others that are locals, to the Utah County area. So it's a very interesting dynamic that the teams share, and there have been some classic ball games between them too. I know I was there for one in Seattle a couple of years ago when Trey Woodbury hit a 3-pointer in overtime to give the Wolverines a win, and then I was there when Morgan Means beat the Wolverines in Orem, and then last year when Riley Grigsby banked in 3, basically sealed the win for the Redhawks. So it's just a very underrated rivalry. Fun atmosphere last night on Native American Heritage Night at the UCCU Center. So let's talk about this final men's game. I'm trying to see if I can get him on here. I don't know if he's going to jump in. He's at Caesar's Palace. I don't know what he's doing at Caesar's Palace. I hope he's having fun. If you are there, Braden, go to the Gordon Ramsay's little, I don't know if it's a pub and grill or whatever it is that's there in their casino. Very good. Very good. My buddy John and I go there on Championship Saturday at the WAC tournament every year. So I love it. But CBU, I don't know how it worked out last night or prior to the game, was a 1.5 point underdog going into Southern Utah. Okay. And all CBU did was win by 25 points at America First Event Center. I was talking to Spencer McLaughlin, who calls the SUU games. I talked to him after the game, and he said CBU was good, but it was also it was almost like Southern Utah just didn't hit shots. Like, they have guys that can hit shots, but they weren't knocking him down. Now, I didn't watch the game. I'll admit, I have to go back and watch that game to reevaluate things and see what happened. But it was a 42-34 game at halftime. After halftime, CBU shot 55% from the field. Southern Utah shot 44. Here's the crazy thing. CBU hit 11 3-pointers in the win. Southern Utah didn't even take 11 3-pointers in the loss. So that tells me a couple things. First, the CBU guards were obviously better, and the CBU guards locked down the perimeter, knowing that because of Southern Utah's lack of size, they could defend a little bit more aggressively on the perimeter. Like, that's what happens when you don't have size against a team that does have size. You had Parsifala for Southern Utah, and then you have Hunter Goodrick, Ivan Udreogo for CBU, plus Malik Wade. That's advantage CBU. And, despite the fact that Fala ended up in double figures with 14, the CBU guards could still be more aggressive because they knew they had protection in the paint. So you push the Southern Utah guards off the perimeter. You're able to lock them down because you have some protection behind you. And I feel like that was the big turning point. I'm going to have to go and verify that theory, Derryl, from what I see from the StatCast and talking to people, but that's exactly what it feels like.
But I want to go back to that second half field goal shooting percentage for CBU. You shoot 55% on the road, you're going to win a lot of games in this conference.
Yep.
That's a heck of a start for Rick Croy and crew to WAC play, and now they are idle for, I believe it's the next 6 days until Wednesday.
Yeah, because I think because of that scheduling thing with the Fowler Events Center, they're the one team that has, I think they host Utah Tech, if I remember right.
Yeah, because the women are in St. George on the 6th.
Yeah, so they don't play till next Wednesday when they host Utah Tech. And we know how crazy those games get between the Trailblazers and Lancers, there in Riverside. So, but it'll be interesting. And I mean, Scotty Scotty Washington went off last night, 21 points. He had 6 3-pointers. All 6 of his field goals were 3-pointers. Brantley Stevenson was in double figures with 15. Blondo Chiquinho had 16, and Ivan Udriogo had 12 points. So, I mean, it was, 11 of 23 from three-point land, just under 48%. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it because I don't want to read too much into it. Like, CBU is this great team. They're good. But was it a mix of Southern Utah not showing up, not being prepared, or is CBU that good? I'm very interested to see. You have a week off. You have Utah Tech on board. And then 6 days after Utah Tech, you're going to Eugene to take on Oregon. So will CBU be laser focused against Utah Tech, knowing who they have on deck? Or will they maybe take them a little bit lightly, win, the game, and then, looking forward to Oregon? So validate it, Lancers, in a week when you play Utah Tech. Validate it. I'm sorry, Doc. I love you guys, and I hope, you continue to win and show me and prove me wrong, since I was given grief last night that I didn't pick the Lancers to win that game against Southern Utah. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, Derryl, any last thoughts from our first night of WAC openers from WAC basketball? Tomorrow, I think we're going to talk about the officiating, the foul shooting. I'll have to go back and put the numbers together from both the men's games and women's games. We'll have some thoughts on some other performances from individual players. And maybe we'll talk about seeding system. I don't know. Break down this whole 8 teams to WAC Vegas scenario and how these games are just, it's wild to have these 2 games in the middle of non-conference play. I don't know. But there are any final thoughts here as we wind down this episode of the Straight Outta WAC live show?
I think we did not touch on the GCU UTRGV women's game at GCU Arena.
You were watching that. You were paying attention. Here's the thing. GCU won by double digits. It was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm with you. Lopes jumped out to a 22-8 lead. I thought UTRGV was done for.
It shows grit from UTRGV to not let that, get completely out of hand. But I'm trying to say this as nicely as possible. What is going on with the GCU women that, either 1, they can't put people away, or 2, they're just not firing on all cylinders offensively? Is it just a matter that they're still trying to figure it out? I know Olivia Lane had a big game last night. So I don't know. What do you see? We'll have to ask Chelsea, get Chelsea on one of these shows and ask her and talk to her about it. But it concerns me that the offense is still kind of a struggle.
But that if you go back through Molly Miller's tenure in Phoenix, offense has been their bugaboo. You look at the first year, okay, fine. She's trying to put the defense in. I get it. The second year, she gets Amara Graham to join that group, and offense was still a struggle. Last year, she adds Sydney Palma, Evan Zars, Lane, and the offense got a little bit better. But it was still offense seems to be the Lopes' biggest struggle. Yeah. And going into UT Arlington on Saturday, if UT Arlington shoots the way they did against ACU last night, that is a trouble game for me if you're a Lopes fan.
Yeah, but we'll say that and then watch GCU go win by 20 somehow. I can't underestimate Molly Miller, and the Lopes. They just find a way to win, and that's what's most important right now. It doesn't matter how ugly or how pretty it is. It's all about finding a way to win, especially a conference game. So it just concerns me because they have a lot of offensive weapons on that team. And when you want to play a pace and when you want to press and when you want to, I think I'm not a coach. I don't get paid the big bucks. But I think they have to be more about getting in transition instead of setting up a half-court offense after they maybe get a turnover or a missed shot when they sped somebody up, because I feel like Trinity San Antonio plays so much better in transition than she does in a half-court offensive set. Same with Tiara Brown. I don't know. That's just my thought, and we'll see how it goes. But not going to underestimate the Lobes because, like you said, we could be talking here and wondering what's going on with their offense, and then they'll go score 85 points, on Saturday. So it's one of those things. It's all about winning games, right?
Yeah, it's all about winning games, and that's the first and foremost. And they certainly did that. But if they're going to drop one of the first couple, this is one I would look at. You got a UTA team that shot the ball really well at ACU and Moody last night, with just one Division I win on the year, one win at all to show for the year, because I don't think they played a non-D1 countable game.
Right.
That's got Colorado next week. So, that's a Lady Math squad that's going to be desperate for a win.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it all plays out. We're one game into WAC play, and it's already crazy wacky. We still have the Utah Tech women and Utah Tech men who haven't played their first WAC game. The Utah Tech women are at Utah Valley on Saturday. Utah Tech men host Utah Valley on Saturday. So very interesting to see how things play out. Somebody's going to be 2-0. Some teams are going to be 1-1. Other teams are going to be 0-2. So it's a very, very interesting time as we start the month of December. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to the Straight Outta WAC live show today. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30. Remember to subscribe to the WAC Hoops Nation YouTube channel, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow WAC Hoops Nation on all your favorite social media platforms.